Good evening. Thank you all for coming to tonight's forum featuring the candidates running for Nampa City Council seats 2, 4, and 6. I'm Scott McIntosh, editor of the Idaho Press Tribune. Let me start by introducing the candidates. Running for seat 2, Darrell Bruner and Victor Rodriguez. Running for seat 4, David Bills. Arturo Gonzalez is not with us this evening, and Sandy Levi. Running for seat 6, Dennis Davis and Bruce Skog. Tonight's forum is the first of 2 forums being presented by the Idaho Press Tribune, KBOI-TV, the Nampa Chamber of Commerce, and the Caldwell Chamber of Commerce. Tomorrow night, we are hosting a candidates forum for Caldwell City Council. Our format for tonight will include 1-minute opening statements from each candidate. Then I and Scott Logan from KBOI-TV will ask a series of questions for each race on a rotating basis. For each question, one candidate in each race will have 1.5 minutes to answer each question, and the other candidate will have 1 minute for a rebuttal. Monitoring the time will be Idaho Press Tribune opinion page editor Phil Bridges, sitting in the front there. He will hold up a paddle to alert you when there are 15 seconds left in your time, and then he will hold up another sign that says time's up. So please keep an eye on Phil, and please respect the time limits. We'll begin with opening statements. We'll go from left to right, and we will start with the candidates for seat 2, and we will start with Darrell Bruner. You have 1 minute.
1 minute. Well, I'm going to take a minute on something that's very important to me, and that is prayer. At NNU, where I work, whenever we have a meeting, we always pray. So allow me just to say a quick prayer for the candidates up here in the city of Nampa. Dear Heavenly Father, we are blessed to be here. Thank you for the folks that are out in the audience. Thank you for each and every one of these candidates. And I just pray that you will just make Nampa, its future, and our youth, just a special place for everyone. In thy name, amen. I am Darrell Bruner. I was born in Nampa, Samaritan Hospital, many years ago. I've lived here about 30 years now. I'm 39. You must think I'm a politician when I say that. I was caught by my wife at NNU 39 years ago. And thank goodness she caught me. In 1994, we could have lived anywhere in the U.S., and we chose Nampa. Finally, I'll just say, at this point, I'm in love with my Christ, I'm in love with my family, and I fight for maintaining our freedoms. I'm a fiscal social conservative, and I'll talk more about that soon. Thanks.
Victor Rodriguez, 1 minute.
My name is Victor Rodriguez, and my wife Delcy is sitting in the second row there. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending a forum that's for your benefit. My goal as your Nampa City Councilman is to bring integrity, unity, balance, and community that will have a positive effect on our city. I will restore confidence and increase transparency to our city, rejuvenate our beautiful historic downtown, and create a friendly business environment, and at the same time have a vision for the future. I will bring an attitude of common sense and will be your conservative voice regarding taxes and government spending. As a retired law enforcement officer, it is my goal to protect Nampa's quality of life, ensuring public safety has the resources to protect us in our everyday life. I will provide real traffic solutions with efficient roadways which lead to positive progress. But ladies and gentlemen, this is not all about me. It's about you. You are our ambassadors. You are the ones who have built Nampa what it is today. And I congratulate you for a job well done so far. Thank you.
Give me just a second. David Bills, 1 minute.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you to those who are sponsoring tonight's forum, and appreciate you coming out and taking interest in what's going on within the city of Nampa and the election, especially on an off year. So hopefully that we have a good turnout and folks are able to participate. We'll take the time to participate. So I'm David Bills, and having had the opportunity to work in Nampa the last 22 years and do communities and building and real estate, that we have got well acquainted with what happens in Nampa from a city relationship with the private community. And when Mayor Bob Henry was elected, I sought this position because of difficulties having experienced at the city of Nampa from 2010 to 2014. And in that process, then I stepped forward and was appointed. Look forward to sharing more with you this evening about positions. And for the quick, married 36 years, my wife Carrie, and we've been in the community, born and raised here, Boise. Thanks.
Sandy Levi, 1 minute.
Seeing you here this evening gives me hope and renewed vision of community engaging and becoming involved in the very decisions that affect both you and me. Unlike any form of government, federal, state, or county, the decisions made here each month in this room are decisions that directly affect you and me. The effects of those decisions result in what you see as you look out your front door, drive down the street, look at businesses, and the overall appearances of Nampa, the town you have chosen to live in, the way we are perceived by surrounding cities in the Treasure Valley. For the past 5.5 years, I have been attending city council meetings. Typically, there are a handful of other people here with us, if any at all. Community matters to me. With a sense of ownership and pride, I want you to join me in saying, yes, I live in Nampa. This is community, and tonight we are celebrating community at its finest.
Dennis Davis, 1 minute.
Thank you, Scott. First of all, I have to thank my beautiful wife, Josette, of 36 years. Boy, I almost stepped in it there. And my family who are here, my brother and his niece and my 2 grandsons. And thank the Idaho Press Tribune for holding this forum. Local government, of course, is the government that's closest to the people, and the folks that are here today obviously take an interest in what's happening here at the city level, as you should, and as we all should, because you really have the greatest influence right here at City Hall. I began my career in public service in 1978 in a neighboring community. And then in 1984, I moved to Nampa and became their building official. It was an exciting time in Nampa. We had lots of activity, construction growth, economic vitality going on, and that experience taught me a lot about city government, and I guess my time's up. Thank you.
All right, we will start with questions. We'll start with, oh, I'm sorry, oh. I'm a print guy, I'm not good at this broadcasting.
I knew the press had it out.
I do. Bruce Skog, 1 minute.
All right, thank you. Thank you to my lovely wife, Debbie, who made it from a cross-country meet just in time, 29 years. Thank you to the Press Tribune, KBOI, and Chamber for sponsoring this event. It's very important. Thank you for being here. You are the informed electorate that wants to know about all of us up here, and it is the informed electorate that I seek your vote from, because you know what you're doing. I was elected in 2013, and some things in our city were going the wrong direction. We had the highest tax city in the state, over 50,000 in population. Now we've got things going in the right direction. Right away, we stopped the city debt by urban renewal projects without the vote of the people. That came to an end immediately. We reduced the taxpayer subsidy of the Ford Idaho Center by over 40%. We saved $250,000 in attorney fees within a 12-month period. We helped reduce the tax levy rate by 16%. It's easier to do business in Nampa, Idaho than it was 2 years ago right now. We still have work to do, but I do ask for your vote on November 3rd. Thank you.
Now we will start with questions. We'll start with candidates for seat 2, and we'll start with Darrell Bruner. Do you believe that historic facade improvements paid for by community development block grant funds should be offered to business owners as grants or low-interest loans, and why? You have 1.5 minutes.
My preference would be low-interest loans. I think each business needs to have a say and have ownership in that and what they want. So my preference would be that each and every business would be asked, but that low-interest loans would be what would be made available to them if they so wanted them.
Victor Rodriguez, 1 minute.
Would you ask that question again, please?
Do you believe that historic facade improvements paid for by community development block grant funds should be offered to business owners as grants or low-interest loans to be repaid, and why?
I would encourage development of historic improvements by proper use of the grants. Period.
Okay. The next question will go to candidates in seat 4. We'll start with David Bills. Is gang crime a problem in Nampa? Why or why not? You have a minute and a half.
Thank you, Scott. This is an issue that gets published every now and then, and we're concerned, obviously. We've been concerned when we started doing business here 22 years ago. The Idaho Press-Tribune would print articles referencing gang activity. And so in the 2 years of being on council, I've had conversations with Chief Kingsbury and Deputy Chief Brad Daniels, and point blank have asked, do we need to be reassigning, do we need to be recreating a gang task force? And both of them have communicated to council and individually, no. The way we are now doing things is the pathway that we need to continue. If we get to that point or we feel it is necessary, we will then come before council. So I've relied upon that information, and there's some who have continued to advocate that we need to have a gang task force. Well, currently right now, we know from articles in the Press Tribune in the last 2 to 3 weeks, there's several neighborhoods that have had high burglary, but we don't immediately assign a burglary task force. And the issue is we want strong police force, well-trained, and on the street, working the various issues. And so, do we have an immediate problem? The press would like it because it sells newspapers, candidly. But I believe we have multiple issues within our community. It's one of, and I support what the chiefs are currently telling us.
Sandy Levi, 1 minute.
Thank you. As elected officials, our primary responsibility is to provide safety for the citizens of our community. So this is something that we have to take seriously when looking at the numbers of what's happening with the gang activity. As I've spoken with several of the officers and community members, there is a concern as to what is happening with the gangs in our community. One of the things that has been commonly said to me or stated to me is the fact that a lot of the gang members that have been put behind bars in the past when we did have the presence of a gang task force are now being released. And they're being released stronger than ever. What are we doing to stay on top of that and to be proactive and to make sure that our community stays safe, not only for our citizens now, but for businesses and future citizens that want to move into our area?
Next question is for seat 6. We'll start with Dennis Davis. Is police staffing in Nampa too high, too low, or just right? 1 minute and a half.
Thank you, Scott. I spent a lot of years working very closely with the police chief and the police department as a fellow department head. And during the staff meetings, where the discussions ranged, of course, from gang violence to vandalism, the graffiti that happens around our community, and how to deal with it. And I've been a bit torn. I think the police department is doing an excellent job with the resources that they have. Of course, we've built them a nice new facility, state-of-the-art facility, to help them accomplish their goal in minimizing and reducing crime in Nampa. I'm concerned a bit countywide that the taxpayers are not supporting the construction of a new jail facility. It seems to be a hard pill to swallow at this time. And I think that if we continue to have policing levels where they are today, I think that the status quo is probably where we need to be, unless we want to put more officers on and then also build a new jail to hold the folks that they're going to be arresting. It kind of goes hand in hand. So to answer your question, I think the numbers are down crime-wise, and I think the Nampa Police Department's doing a fine job.
Bruce Skog, 1 minute rebuttal.
Currently, we have too few police officers on the street. We've been able to get by for a while because crime has been down in our city and across the nation. It's starting to go back up. Drug use, heavy drug use, is on the rise in Nampa considerably. It's also caused 20% increase in property crimes, shopliftings, burglaries. That's a result of the drug use going up. So next is the violent crime. We're starting to see that curve go up, and we've got to stop that. So we need more boots on the street right away and support staff for our police officers. And I'll be advocating for that in this next budget session and right now. And we have an excellent police department, by the way, the highest and best trained in the state. It's the place officers want to work, but they're getting overworked right now. They get 350 calls in a day now. It was about 250 not that long ago. So they're busy, they're working harder than any of the other communities around us with more calls, and we need to support them personally and as a city council.
Next question is for seat 2, and we'll start with Victor Rodriguez. Comes from Scott Logan.
Where would you focus your attention in improving the city's public infrastructure, and what's your approach to maintenance and improvement needs?
Right now, can our infrastructure handle our progress? Can infrastructure handle our subdivisions, 200-300 that are going in now? It's a difficult task to start rebuilding our infrastructure without the money that we have. So at this point, I would say that we need to work on that and save for the future to prepare for that. And that's where I think would be benefit us, because it wouldn't hurt the taxpayers. An increase in infrastructure right now would just really embark a real difficult task for the citizens in our community to take on. Thank you.
Darrell Bruner, 1 minute.
Infrastructure is just key for any growing city, and we are a growing city. And I strongly believe that our roads and so on, maintenance, and then of course our water lines and so on for future development need to be done. And I'm not in favor at all of as far as increasing the budget, but I think prioritizing the budget is so important, and infrastructure is going to be absolutely essential for the city of Nampa to grow like we want to.
Our next question is for the candidates in seat 4, and we'll start with Sandy Levi. You have one minute and a half. The question is Nampa's property tax levy rate too high, too low, or just right, and why?
When it comes to the levy rate, there is something that we need to understand how the levy rate is figured. The levy rate is figured when we take the valuation of the property in Nampa and we take that, divide it by our budget for the city, and then that levy rate is set by the county. When we think about, in the past couple years, the claim that our levy rate has come down, our property taxes have also gone up, and that is set by the county assessor. So we need to look at what is going to be most effective in our community, the services that we are receiving due to the levy rate, and what are we willing to pay for.
David Bills, 1 minute rebuttal.
Thank you. I believe our levy rate is too high. And I have commented over and over, and being on council the last 2 years, we held the budget in check of the first year, and we have had some increases this year, but overall we're too high. The key on the levy side is the state code advocates that you can increase your budget minimum 3% without having to go beyond that to the voters. And so there's different philosophies. One, continue to raise that budget, maximize getting that money every year, don't give back. And then there's the other side of the philosophy where I'm at, and that is we need to prioritize our expenditures, we need to hold the line on how much we raise, and we need to remain fiscally smart. And so from my perspective, the way that we're going to deal with issues is we have to work on continued investment and commercial investment, additional employment in Nampa.
Our next question is for seat 6. We'll start with Bruce Skog for a minute and a half. The question comes from Scott Logan.
Do you support increasing the Nampa Public Library's budget? Why or why not?
In this last budget session, we did increase the Nampa Public Library's budget. Great communities have great libraries. We now have, I think, the best library in the state. But, and we did the budget time, it was planned with a little bit of an increase, but I was the one that made the motion to increase the books by $47,000. I made that motion, it passed. So we do support our library. I wish we had more funds to have longer hours. I hope we can do that in the next year.
Dennis Davis, 1 minute rebuttal.
Well, the library obviously is a key component of our community. If we're going to attract new industry and economic growth, of course, one of the things they look for in terms of amenities when they want to bring their employees to Nampa are your public library, the support of that public library, obviously the schools are all closely tied to the types of services that the library provides. The library needs to be supported. We've built a new facility here. It needs to have its proper maintenance and care, and an ongoing budget that realizes and meets the needs of the citizens as we see usage go up. A lot of folks don't realize it, but the old library had about 1,000 patrons a day go through its doors. And I don't know what the number is today, but I can't imagine that it hasn't increased. And I think that as a community, most folks do support increasing or at least maintaining the level of funding to the library so it meets the community's needs.
Next question is for seat 2. We'll start with Darrell Bruner. You'll have 1.5 minutes. How would you address shortfalls in the city's funding for streets?
Well, I think I probably addressed that a little bit in the last question. I mean, I think that has to be a total priority, and I realize it's not going to happen overnight or in 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, but we have to prioritize the overall budget as far as for the streets and the maintenance. And that's also for pathways, pedestrian and bike. And so it's just going to be a key that hopefully we're going to, as Mr. Bill said, that we're going to have more economic growth. And we'll get more businesses and tax structure, but roads have to be a priority as far as in the budget.
Victor Rodriguez, 1 minute.
I support building roads with a maintenance plan, but that's also according to how much money we have in the budget for that. A priority is important right now. However, it's also going to depend on state funding and the federal funding that we're going to get or may have to match. That's a priority to me at this point. So that we have to go out and locate money for us where the people aren't going to have to pay for that. Thank you.
Next question is for seat 4. And we'll start with Sandy, and we'll start with David Bills, and it'll come from Scott Logan.
Well, this is another one about the Nampa Library. Do you believe that using urban renewal funds to finance the library was a good way to build the library, or do you think it should have been put to the voters for their approval?
Thank you, Scott. I absolutely believe that it should have been put to the voters. I wholeheartedly embraced and encouraged then Director of Public Works, Paul Raymond, and the Mayor, Tom Dale, that when we did the GO bond for the bridges over the railroad, that we went to the people, and the people said yes. And in this case, leadership said we're going to use urban renewal. Unfortunately, to the property taxpayer, that costs you an extra 4% per year on $18 million, actually $20 million. You do the math. It's anywhere from $650 to, as we get further out, $850,000 extra because we used urban renewal to finance that project. If we'd gone straight to the voters, the bond rates would have been in that 1 to 1.5%. That alone is costly. So while I support library and renewal and doing things, there's proper ways to get it done. And unfortunately, in this case, I don't believe prior leadership did the right by the taxpayer. And so when you look at the bond schedule, and we're locked in, we can't refinance any bonds for 10 years. We're locked in at the higher rates, minimum 10 years, because urban renewal doesn't have the same tax guarantee that normal property tax bonds do.
Sandy Levi, 1 minute.
As the library has already been built, I am more focused on embracing all the positive things that it has to offer, rather than dwelling on how things might have been done differently. It is a great resource, offering many valuable programs, a place for the community to gather, and more importantly, to set a foundation for reading, which promotes lifelong learning. The library reaches to all segments of our society. I support any tool that can be used to build an education in the lives of our residents.
Okay, the next question is for seat 6, and we will start with Dennis Davis. You'll have a minute and a half. What does Nampa need to do to compete with Meridian and other cities for new residents, businesses, and development, and how would you make Nampa more competitive?
Well, having come from the city side in terms of the services we provide the development community, not only on the subdivision and land development, land use issues, but also on the building safety side, I can tell you that Nampa does an excellent job. As a matter of fact, we've often held out the services, the customer service, the turnaround times that we use for processing new projects and plans as an incentive to bring development to the community. So I think that in terms of the competition, Nampa's on the right track. We're doing the right kinds of things in terms of offering a friendly environment for folks to come and do business. You have a one-stop shop in Nampa. You don't have to deal with the ACHD. You have the city of Nampa is blessed by owning and operating the majority of its infrastructure, and that is a real benefit to any development community. They can come in and drop off a set of plans at the counter out there and have them processed and never have to come back and pick up their plans and take it to some other entity. So to answer your question, I think Nampa's doing a superb job. What they could do better, there are a few things that might be tweaked to make that a more friendly service, and I would be glad to share those with the mayor once I'm elected.
Bruce Skog, 1 minute rebuttal.
Well, it's not a competition with Meridian or any other city, but we're already doing things, as my opponent has stated, that have made this a more friendly place to build a business, to build a home, to move here. A lot of that thanks goes to our good staff, but also Councilman David Bills. He's been right in the thick of that in our engineering and building department, making it smoother. Look at the businesses that have come into Nampa recently. They're coming in, they're buying property. We're not even allowed to share yet, but they are buying property everywhere. If I was going to invest in property in anywhere in the world, I'd buy it in Nampa right now. So good things are happening. How do we encourage businesses to come here? We get out of the way. We lower the tax levy. We've lowered it by 16% in 2 years. If we keep that up, maybe I'll get it to 0 eventually. But we're going the right direction. So I ask for your vote that we keep going the right direction. Thank you.
Next question for seat 2. We'll start with Victor Rodriguez, and it comes from Scott Logan.
Just to follow up on the library situation, if the library had been put to a public vote, how would you have voted?
I support education because it benefits the city of Nampa and it benefits us down the road. It would have been a different maybe funding program, but I would have supported the library. Maybe if it would have been a different location too. Those are the simple factors you're not asking, but I would have supported it. You bet.
Darrell Bruner, 1 minute rebuttal.
As far as voting on the library, there's no question we needed a new library. I would have not voted it under the financial conditions it was with urban renewal. There was no way I would have done that. Yeah, I think it was very poorly done, and I think very well explained by Mr. Bills. As far as the location, we have a real challenge down there just with traffic. I've talked to many businesses, and people are not coming downtown. So the location, I would have also looked into another location other than where it is right now.
Okay, our next question is for seat 4. We'll start with Sandy Levi, and you'll have a minute and a half. Oh, actually, we'll start with David Bills. David Bills, you are often critical of developers' plans that come before the council and express this in the hearings. Do you think that there is a problem with the coordination between the Planning and Zoning Board and the city staff that render the plans as insufficient, and what should be done to correct this?
Thank you, Scott. I speak candidly at council meetings, and I also ask a tremendous number of questions. And the reason being is because when you have the experience that I have, and having been before city council for the past 22 years in bringing projects and applications for zoning annexations, changes, et cetera, before council, having worked with staff at that same time, then you begin to learn what staff is looking for, what council is looking for. And so the reason I'm critical towards some of the development community is because they come in, sometimes, not always, but some come in with a scratched paper, like they just tore it out of their 3-ring binder and said, here's what we're wanting to do. I believe that the development community has a great responsibility to come in and explain, here's what we want to do, here's what we're asking for, and here's how we're going to do it in concert with your ordinances. I think they are responsible. I believe I've been responsible. At the same time, I believe staff is responsible to be customer service. I think they're supposed to be responsive in terms of timeliness of processing that application, timeliness in reviewing the drawings. I expect that I should get back the red line drawings once. I shouldn't have to go 2 and 3 times, nor should other developers. And so consequently, it's a two-way street. And that's why at times I ask a tremendous number of questions. I expect a lot. I believe we've produced a lot in the years that we've been here.
Sandy Levi, 1 minute.
Could you repeat the question, please?
So we asked Mr. Bills if, that he is often critical of developers' plans that come before the council and expresses this in hearings. Do you think that there's a problem with the coordination between the Planning and Zoning Board and the city staff that render the plans as insufficient, and what should be done to correct this?
Thank you. As a newly appointed Commissioner for Planning and Zoning in Canyon County, I am just going through a learning process of the steps taken from the application to get to the Planning and Zoning, and then if it's appealed, going to the County Commissioners itself. I believe any system always needs to be revisited. Customer service definitely should always be the #1 thing we're looking at. How can we better serve our constituents, the people that we are to serve, whether it's in a department or as an elected official? We need to make sure that that's friendly. It's a user-friendly system. We need to make sure that the developer as well as the applicants know what they need to do before they come before planning and zoning, and make that process as easy as possible for them. When they do come before planning and zoning, they need to listen to the concerns, listen to the plans of the developer or the applicant, and then move forward in a positive way that benefits our community.
Our next question is for candidates in seat 6. We'll start with Bruce Skog. He'll have 1.5 minutes, and it comes from Scott Logan.
Do you think the city of Nampa should continue to subsidize the Nampa Civic Center and the Ford Idaho Center? Why or why not?
Mr. Logan, I look at those like city parks. We wanted those, we built them, and we have them now. Now, a big thing that I ran on 2 years ago was the subsidy at the Ford Idaho Center is $1.6 million, way too high and way too crazy. We shouldn't be doing that when we couldn't support our police and our roads. But we have reduced that by over 40% in the last 2 years, and we're going to keep that going in the right direction with better management. And you said Civic Center also?
Yes, sir.
There are changes taking place at the Civic Center also. We should subsidize that to some degree. But it's going to keep getting better, and I'm very optimistic that it will. As management things change, and it will get better.
Dennis Davis, 1 minute.
I remember when the Idaho Center was built, and the discussion about whether or not it should, be subsidized by the taxpayer or not. And an economic study was commissioned at that time that showed that the center itself and the economic activity that's generated around events that come to that center, people buying dinner, they're fueling up their cars, whatever it might be, actually the dollars that were spent there turned over at least twice within the community. And I say that just as a point of information, because nowhere in the country, when the communities build facilities, venues such as the Idaho Center or the Civic Center, do they carry their own weight. They're always subsidized by the public entity, and they're done so because they bring business and commerce into a community. And I think that's the way we really need to look at those facilities to make sure they're operated on a professional manner, that they continue to work towards self-supporting, but we're going to have to support them, I'm afraid.
Next question is for seat 2. We'll start with Darrell Bruner. Do you think that the City Council did the right thing in restricting the use of urban renewal, and do you think that citizens should have the right to vote on construction of public buildings? 1.5 minutes.
I don't need 1.5 minutes, always. The public always needs to have the right to vote on public buildings.
And do you think that the City Council did the right thing in restricting the use of urban renewal?
Correct.
Mine's going to be very short as well, and I affirm that, yes.
Next question is for seat 4. We'll start with Sandy Levi, and the question will come from Scott Logan.
Only about 10% of businesses that use the Boise State Tech Center stay in Canyon County. Is this a concern, and what would you do to encourage these businesses to stay and invest in Canyon County?
I believe it would be extremely important first to understand why 90% of the businesses using the tech center are choosing to leave Canyon County. A great deal of time and resources have been invested in the success of these businesses, and it would be to the benefit of Canyon County and the city of Nampa to have them remain and continue with the growth and progress of their business. I would first determine who has made use of the resources offered and whether or not they use these resources to grow their businesses. If they left Canyon County, where did they relocate and why? Was there a drawback that impeded their growth and development, or was there a more favorable business climate in another area? The City Council and Mayor's Office should strive to understand these factors and work with the existing agencies to find a solution. I believe the sponsoring universities should be able to assist in finding ways to encourage new growth to these businesses and thrive them in Canyon County, but more specifically to Nampa.
David Bills, 1 minute.
Thank you. If you know, the Tech Center is out on the BSU campus on the north side of the Idaho Center. And in there, if you've ever visited, there's incubator space for startup. And that's what the question is referencing then. And out of that, different startups locate there, make use of the joint synergy, and at some point, they tend to go out of that center to a private location. Most startups use joint venture capital to get their business financed and move it forward. Joint venture capitalists have great influence as to what that business is going to do in terms of location, how it's going to grow, how things are going to happen. And Nampa is partnering through the Economic Development Department and relationships of business-minded council members with folks talking to keep business coming here, looking to here. And so we've already been asked about getting new office space in this area, so those type of businesses locating can be here. So.
Next question is for seat 6, and we'll start with Dennis Davis. How should the city move forward with urban renewal? You have 1.5 minutes.
Well, having been around since the first urban renewal was initiated in Nampa and having a good deal of experience in the history of urban renewal, I think urban renewal and tax increment financing, they say a lot just in their names. I mean, urban renewal is used to address blighted areas, to take care of infrastructure needs that in areas that might need the help, generating economic prosperity in those parts of our city. It's been used for many things, rightly or wrongly. Building the Idaho Center and the new public safety building and the library were activities that have sparked a lot of debate about urban renewal. But I can tell you every major city in Idaho has an urban renewal district of some sort. And the second thing that people need to consider is that the Idaho legislature has, severely restricted the ability of local governments to tax themselves. If the citizens of this community decided that they wanted to had a half a cent on a sales tax to build a new jail. They do not have that ability to do that because the legislature said we're not old enough to make those decisions and we're not astute enough to do that. So they've really limited local government's ability to do that. And the one tool that local governments have is urban renewal. And I think if it's used correctly and within the confines of the public sentiment and how the taxpayers see it being used, I think it can be used right.
Bruce Skog, 1 minute and 5 seconds.
I hear that a lot, if it's used correctly, but I haven't found a community in Idaho yet that has used it correctly. Some places in California have gone bankrupt because of their misuse of urban renewal. Our urban renewal funds, which we maxed out, would have been better used for a tech park, so these new businesses could locate here that are leaving the current tech facility. That could have been done well, with roads and infrastructure. It wasn't done. So although we love our library and the new police department, which we needed both, it was funded wrongly. So how to handle it moving forward? Pay off the debt and shut it down.
All right, next question will be for seat 2. We'll start with Victor Rodriguez, and the question comes from Scott Logan.
Do you think the Nampa City Council appropriately reflects and represents the city's ethnic and gender diversity?
Wow, you're asking me that?
Si, senor.
Well, I think I'm the only Hispanic here, and plus Sandy over there. That's an issue that should be addressed, is because what the culture and diversity of Nampa is a good economic sound foundation for us. When you have a whole melting pot of community, just think how the benefit for each and our children are going to be. And so I firmly believe that yes, I ought to be on the city council. Thank you, sir.
Did he write that question?
I don't think it's exactly what I asked.
Darrell Bruner, 1 minute.
Does Nampa, I think the question was whether it represents the ethnicity and gender. Is that what you're
Right,
saying?
whether it
Scott?
appropriately reflects and represents.
I believe
or should.
there's 21% Hispanic population and another 5 or 6% other than Caucasian population. So if you just want a straight answer, no, it doesn't represent. But I think also Nampa and all the citizens know, whether it's your business, whether it's an education institution or whatever, you want the best person for that job. We are not an affirmative action type state. So what we need there is a person that's experienced, has the background, and is going to do the best job. Now, if that means it's Hispanic, Black, Caucasian, Asian, that's fine. And as far as me being married for 39 years, and from a gender standpoint, I think I can speak for my wife. She speaks through me, and I think men can speak for women, and women can speak for men.
The next question is for seat 4, and we'll start with Sandy Levi. Do you support increasing the Nampa Public Library's budget? Why or why not?
When it comes to our Nampa Library, as a board member, we definitely are always in need of funds. However, at the same point, I want to say we have a remarkable director and staff that are working with what is available. We belong to a consortium in our library of 11 area libraries, and we have a contract that states that we are to fall within 20% of our budget to be in that consortium that is for the collection. For the last few years, we have been ranging between 8 to 11%. With the recent raise that we did get, or the budget increase that we got from the City Council, it brings us up to just a bit over 9%. That puts us in danger of losing our standing with the consortium. How does that benefit you that we're in the consortium? You have access to getting books from any of the area libraries, and this increases your ability to learn, and it helps us to have a more up-to-date library. So yes, I would be an advocate of increasing our funding, as well as we need increased funding because we have an outcry of extending our hours to our library.
David Bills, 1 minute.
As Councilman Skog already has said that, and Sandy has also referenced, that council did raise the budget amount for the library this year, and in 2 areas. The first area was nearly $60,000. And when I first got on council 2 years ago and part of the urban renewal, I asked the director then, Mark Rose, about, are you planning for a 60,000 square foot facility? Do you know what your budget costs are going to be? Are you preparing for the cost of maintaining a 60,000 square foot facility? And all Mark would respond was, well, we're still working on that. We know we got to do that. We got to talk with the police and fire about how much it costs them, but we don't have that worked out yet. So as a council, you have to make decisions if staff is not dealing with it. This year, we increased the budget because they realized, hey, our utilities are up. It's much costlier to operate that 60,000 square foot building. So consequently, it affects how much can get added to the other needs of the library. But council took affirmative action on that, and I continue to support that.
Next question is for seat 6, and we'll start with Bruce Skog. You'll have a minute and a half. The question comes from Scott Logan.
As the city grows, there's, of course, an increased pressure on city services such as public safety, water, sewer. How do you propose that the city address this increased demand, and where should the burden for additional services fall? For example, how much of new development should pay for itself through impact fees?
In the new development, particularly in some of the subdivisions with smaller homes, they do not pay for themselves. The way it's currently set up, the rest of us end up subsidizing those homes, not just when they go in, but forever. And so we need that balance, and we are working on that, and it's a tough one to crack, because you can't say, well, you can't build lesser expensive homes in Nampa. But we can make decisions on what subdivisions we annex into the city. Yes, there's going to be more pressure as we grow, but we're preparing for that. You know, for 10 years before our election, and 2 years ago, there was no extra funding for just the maintenance of our city streets, in good times and in bads. We fixed that. We found the money while lowering the tax levy rate, and now we have regular maintenance of our roads. And that was a major accomplishment by our city council and staff putting that together. So there's always that challenge. We're never going to have enough money for everything everyone wants in every department. So we need to make the right decisions in the right places. But this year I'll be focusing on public safety through the police department, because I believe crime is on the increase already, and we need to get more officers on the street. That will be my focus.
Dennis Davis, 1 minute.
I think that the sentiment is pretty clear. Development needs to pay its own way. And in your question, you kind of mixed a couple different parts of the city, enterprise funds, along with operations that draw their finances and their monies from the general fund. I think that the enterprise fund operations, your sewer and your water, irrigation and those types of things can be adequately dealt with in terms of what we charge the development community when they come in and get a permit or whenever they develop a new subdivision. And we can also plan for growth and take the right measures to keep those funds solvent and make sure that they're not used for anything other than new growth. So development does need to carry its own weight. And I think that going forward, Nampa's got a bright future. We should try and get the highest paying jobs in terms of the development we're seeking, and that'd be my position when I was on the council, if I was on the council.
Okay, the remainder of the questions are going to be 1 minute each. And we are going to move to seat 2, and we're going to start with Darrell Bruner. You'll have 1 minute. Is police staffing in Nampa too high, too low, or just right, and why?
No, I'm not an expert in police. That's Chief Kingsbury and Brad and so on. They need to make those decisions. And if we see crime, as Mr. Skog is saying, is rising, then we need to have more officers. I know there is some challenges as far as with leave and overtime and for staffing, and that needs to be able to be flexible. And the administration have the right to have the right number of police officers on duty to protect us. And if that means more hiring, then I will leave that up to them and their decision, because I believe in their direction and administration for our city.
Victor Rodriguez.
Ladies and gentlemen, in 2008, there was 128 officers, 78,000 people. Now, 2015, there is 112. But you're still paying higher taxes. So you're not getting the services that you're paying for. And I don't think that's appropriate. So I would support that, irregardless whether increasing crime, crime is here. And it's going to affect you when you have an issue where a burglary or someone takes your property, they're not going to investigate it. It's not right for us as community residents to not have a complete obligated police force that can do their job. And I would suggest that we get on that and take care of our children and our families. And the police officers are working so hard that they can't answer your calls. 350 a day. There's no community involvement with them either at that point. So let's do something about it. Thank you.
Next question is for seat 4. We'll start with David Bills, and it comes from Scott Logan.
Well, we've been talking about the growth in the city. This question is, how would you address shortfalls in the city's funding for streets and other infrastructure?
Well, that question's been asked. It's been partially answered from the standpoint, council's not going to immediately address shortfalls. The issue is Nampa has regularly been behind the curve for the 20 years that I've been involved. When we talk about infrastructure, Nampa has taken money from the infrastructure side of life and spent it in other directions. And now, after the last 2 years, the priority of spending for the first time in many years has been shifted to two things, and that is helping the roads side. And our Public Works Director, Michael Foose, has a 7-year plan and 7-year cycle. And so in the last 2 years, council has shifted a great deal of funding towards those issues. Furthermore, council for the first time in the last 2 years has dealt with a personal leave liability that the city is carrying at $7.3 million. And council is addressing that issue. It's leadership, it's long-term planning, and it's instead of short-term fixes, it's long-term planning that we have to continue to transition towards.
Sandy Leva.
As in any expenditure with the budget, we always need to be reviewing if we are utilizing the budget to the most full potential and identifying the immediate needs of the city. Yes, our roads and our streets do definitely need to be looked at. The largest part of our transportation still are automobiles. How do we maintain those roads? How do we bring the roads up to speed? That's definitely something that we need to identify and we need to resolve. Then we also have to ask ourselves as citizens, what are we willing to give to bring those roads up to where we want them to be? Are we willing to make a sacrifice if need be? I do appreciate the fact that Michael Foose does have a 7-year plan. We're working through that to see how things go. Maybe we need to let it work itself out, but these are things that we definitely need to consider.
The next question is for candidates in seat 6, and we did ask this question of other candidates. We'll give you an opportunity to answer the same question. We'll start with Dennis Davis. The question is, do you believe that the historic facade improvements paid for by community development block grant funds should be offered to business owners as grants or low-interest loans, and why?
I think that you just need to look at some of the improvements that have taken place downtown, and particularly the old bank building on 12th and 1st, and see the kinds of value that brings to our downtown. And I would personally continue the program as a grant. I think that prioritization of the buildings that are going to be refurbished is key to making sure the dollars bring the best bang for the buck. But I think it should remain a grant program, and as long as you have a willing partner in the business owner or the property owner, and they're willing to maintain that facility or that building over the long term, I think it's a good investment in our downtown.
Bruce Skog.
Low-interest loans at best. I do not support taking taxes from others and giving it to private business. I have an 85-year-old mother-in-law who lives in town. She's on a fixed income, and building a new facade for her downtown does not help her at all. Let's keep the tax dollars in public where it's needed, not be giving it to private businesses. I do not support what they call now as public-private partnerships, which usually means the taxpayer gets soaked.
All right, we are now going to move into the lightning round. Keep it exciting. Wake up, everybody. We'll ask the same question of all candidates, and we'll go left to right, and you'll have 1 minute each. We'll start with Darrell Bruner. First question is, even though the Nampa School District is a separate government entity, there is no question that education is a critical issue for city residents. Do you support the upcoming supplemental levy for the Nampa School District? Why or why not?
You would ask me that 3 weeks ago, I would say no. But I'm one who, my leadership is listen, research, and then make a decisive decision. Today, I would say yes, I will support that. I listened to Mr. Peterson. It's a new administration. We need to give them an opportunity. If they need to make this want to make this happen, and I feel like they have a great plan. I also have a strong trust and belief in Dr. McGordy, who is the trustee board chairperson. So at this point in time, I would say yes, let's support the new it's a lot of money, 7.8 million. But what I will also say is we'll support it. I will support it now. If we don't handle it fiscally well, I will not support it again.
Victor Rodriguez.
Over the last couple of months, I have met with the PTA members. I have met with trustees and administrators of the school district. And I think it's important that we educate our children and give them the property equipment that they need to better themselves as well as our community. I wholly support the tax levy.
David Bills.
Thank you. Having been on the Meridian School Board 20-plus years ago, I've been through bond issues, levies. I've helped save the Meridian School District $1 million in building Eagle High School. So I know how to work dollars, I know how to save money, and I encourage fiscal responsibility. I was very disappointed in our leadership at Nampa Schools when it came public that they were a $5 million deficit, as many other taxpayers. The ship has changed, new leadership, new direction. They've outlined a good plan. Listened to the board at a joint session at the end of August and heard and went through the numbers. And consequently, I can see the support and how they're trying to do it. Part of it's in the refinance of bonds, and part of it is to keep the numbers the same. But that levy that is before the taxpayers was a 3-2 vote. 3 of those board trustees said we're going to still hold the minimum, and 2 wanted to go further. I applaud that school board and how they made that decision this go-around.
Sandy Levi.
I strongly support education, and as someone who has been a teacher for 25-plus years, I believe very strongly in laying that foundation for our kids. But one of the things or fallacies that we tend to fall into is that more money thrown at education equals better education. And this is something we want to rethink. I do believe that we need to be accountable with the dollars that our school district has that they use, because that's your money and my money. Those are our children that are being taught. Are they being taught at the level of education that we find acceptable? I don't really believe that this is an easy question, black or white question to answer, so I apologize that I'm not answering it in such a fashion. But I just want to challenge our thinking to put on the forefront, just because we throw more money at something does not mean a better education.
Dennis Davis.
Well, I can only say that the support of the district and all districts and the folks that are educating our children, my grandsons are here, and they're part of the Nampa School District and are doing very well. I think that the lack of support says more about a community than the actual support. And the failure to not support them financially and give them the money that they need to operate is not the kind of message that we want to send. And I think that we should support that levy.
Bruce Scott.
Well, I am a product of public school from first grade through law school. I went to private kindergarten, but they kicked me out halfway through. So, but on this levy, as Councilman Bill says, I'm excited about the new leadership of Nampa School District. They have an excellent superintendent. He has a good bearing and presence and leadership. But I have not looked at the numbers in detail yet, so just like I make decisions on any election, I look through what people really believe. I haven't looked at the numbers to see what we're getting, if it is the best bang for our buck. So I still have to look at those numbers before I say yes or no, and I haven't done that yet.
All right, the next lightning round question will start with Victor Rodriguez, and it comes from Scott Logan.
If you were king or queen for one day, what is the one thing you would change about the city of Nampa?
I think the appearance of Nampa. Number one, we look like their bedroom community, and we're not. We're a strong, faith-based community that needs to be looked at just like that. And we are a business-minded community, not like the impression that other people get from the Treasure Valley. That's what I would change.
David Bills.
If I had the opportunity, I'd change attitude. Too often, we are doom and gloom. And too often, we meet people who come in from outside and want to buy, and what do you like about this community? And we have opportunity to share that. And what frustrates me sometimes is we got a darn good community here. We got a great valley here, and it's very much discovered. There is great growth coming upon this community. Some will applaud it. Others who have born and raised here will say, whoa. And what I have a challenge with is when we just stay in the doom and gloom. You know, I enjoy when I read in the press and on the online the positive articles. Don't you? I enjoy when we come to a meeting and say, oh, we got a problem. I enjoy, let's fix the problem, let's deal with it, let's create a plan, let's move forward, let's find solutions. We've done that in times past. We don't have to stay in the negative realm. For one day, could we just not have all the people say, yes, yes, this is a great community?
Sandy Levi.
I would change the sense of community. My tagline is building relationships, building community. I would like to see a stronger connection not only within our citizens themselves, but between the citizens, the businesses, and City Hall. I'd also like to emphasize the positive more, just because that's my nature, is I'm optimistic. When I look at people, I tend to see the best in them. When I look at situations, I see the best, and I say, what can we do to make it better? I would also like our city to be the place with that sense of community that the surrounding cities are looking at. They're not making a joke out of Nampa, but they're looking at Nampa and saying, wow, what's going on there? I want to be part of that.
Dennis Davis.
Well, having been here through times of great growth and prosperity, and also times when we had economic downturns, I think the thing that I would like to change, if I was king for a day, is this creeping into our body politic of negativism. It's along the same lines as Councilman Bills spoke to. I think that we're getting caught up in what's happened in the past. We have to look forward, and we have to embrace those things that happened in the past that made this community great. I can tell you, I came from a neighboring community when I came to work here in Nampa, and the things that happened in Nampa over that period of time were amazing. Other communities were sending people to Nampa to see how we were accomplishing the things that we did. And so that pride and community is there. The group, everybody came together as the business community, the civic groups, and all of the folks would come in and support the city in its endeavors, and we did great things.
Bruce Skog.
You know, I don't get stumped very often on questions, but that's a tough one. Nampa is a great community. I love it here. But I suppose if I was king for a day and could make it happen, I'd take away all illegal drugs. That has affected every one of our lives and family in some manner, the crime that we have. If I could get rid of that, I would. And I want to support our police with the right task force to help get rid of those drugs. Whatever counseling sessions or things we need to set up in the community, I want to be supportive of that. So if I was king for a day, there would be no illegal drugs in the community.
Darrell Bruner.
I'm going to jump on the main bandwagon here, and I would just go out and buy pom-poms and cheer, because I think we're on the right track. And I think the council meetings that I've sat in, we are working on the problems. We're making progress. And this is a great community. As I told you earlier, my wife and I could have lived anywhere in the United States. Back in 1994, we decided to move back to Nampa and raise our family here. The churches, all the churches working together and caring about our young people and our people, that is the key. So the key is we are a faith-based community, and we need to keep it that way. And that's, if I had anything to do, it just make sure we maintain the faith and family focus that we have currently.
All right, our next lightning round question will start with David Bills. How would you describe your political philosophy? Liberal, conservative, progressive? Please explain.
Well, in those terms, I'm a fiscal conservative and I'm a social conservative. So if you read anything about me or you know of much about me, you'll know that I have faith in Christ. I am a studier of the Bible. I teach at different times classes on the Bible. I've preached from the pulpit. So from a conservative point of view, I'm pretty straightforward in that vein. And I don't wear it on my sleeve in terms of trying to tell people what they should believe or how they should do. But in certain venues, I'll certainly share and I'll speak to those side of the equation. Fiscally, I think my answers I've already shared with you that I'm a pretty fiscal conservative. I believe in living without debt as much as possible. Use debt only if it's in the short term in business and projects. I don't like a lot of public debt, as has been expressed. And I believe we need to learn how to live within the means. And I believe council has a responsibility to live within the means provided by you, the taxpayer.
Sandy Levi?
I am not ashamed of who I am, and I want to make decisions that are honoring to the people that I serve, but most importantly, that they honor the Lord that I serve. I am responsible in the things that I do, and I have a lifestyle that shows that. I live debt-free. If you don't have the money, you don't spend it. I view things through the fact that I want to treat people with value and respect. And that's very big to me. And in turn, I want them to value and respect me. I realize that in our community specifically, we have people with different ideas, different cultures. But that doesn't mean that one is better or superior over the next. There's always something that we can learn, and there's always a way that we can, in our society or in Nampa specifically, we can come together and make our community a great community.
Dennis Davis?
Well, I think that above all other things, or the thing that I hold near and dear is my personal integrity. And in the way I conduct business on a personal level and a professional level, I would have to say that I'm a moderate. I think you need both extremes to get to the middle. And the middle is where we should be, and not discount anybody's view or disposition just based on where they feel they should be. I'm an independent voter. I'll vote for a candidate, the right candidate, regardless of party affiliation, and I always have. You take the time. I think the most patriotic thing we can do is to educate ourselves about the issues and make sure we're informed when it comes to casting our votes, and that's more important than anything.
Bruce Scott?
Would you restate the question? I want to make sure I heard it correctly.
How would you describe your political philosophy? Liberal, conservative, progressive? Please explain.
Well, I don't know if any of you are wondering if I'm a liberal or not. I'm not that. I like that we're nonpartisan in city council. You can't have a party affiliation as far as I'm running Republican, Democrat, Libertarian. That's very refreshing to me. It takes all of that out. But nowadays, it seems nobody wants to admit that they're a liberal, and they've changed the term to progressive. And I'm reminded, I wrote this down from an FBI agent, a former one I met in college. And he said, a liberal is someone who feels a great debt to his fellow man, which debt he proposes to pay off with your money. And I never forgot that. And so I'm not a liberal. I would be a conservative both socially and fiscally. And I read things like Frederick Bastiat, those kinds of things. And so I'm a free market guy.
Darrell Bruner?
Conservative. And I already said I was fiscal and socially conservative. And I think words are sometimes cheap, actions are golden. And if you're going to win an election in Nampa, Idaho, is anyone going to say that they're liberal? Probably not. Probably not going to happen. We have a track record for Mr. Bills and Mr. Skog. No one else up here has a track record. So it's what we've done in our lives. And I'm proud to share some of the things in my life. We have a strict budget. We paid off 2 homes. We'll pay off our 3rd home here in 5 years. We have no personal or business bankruptcies. In 14 years of business, we opened 3 new and also managed 4 successful businesses in Canada and the U.S. Each one of those had 50 to 100 employees. We owned our first business in 1980. It was supposed to be shut down. We worked it for a year, and in a year we had $80,000 net profit back in 1980. We're proud of that. So as far as conservative, you have it right, Mrs. Levi. You don't spend the money you don't have.
Victor Rodriguez.
I am a senior citizen on a fixed income. What am I? A conservative. Yes, and I have been a public servant for 40 years. What am I? A conservative. And so, especially dealing with the taxpayers' money, you bet. You have to be conservative regarding your money with what we do with it. So, end of story. Thank you.
All right, I think we'll move to closing statements, and we'll go right to left this time. So we will start with Bruce Skog. You'll each have 3 minutes, so 3 minutes for closing statements.
I want to thank you again for hosting this forum. It is important to have an informed electorate, and the Idaho Press Tribune has historically made sure we understand what's going on with the candidates. They ask a lot of questions, and that really surprised me last election, and they did it again this time. We had to fill out sheets of answers, and so thank you for that. I want to thank those who have supported me in this election. I want to say thank you again to my wife, Debbie, of 29 years. She prays for me, and she supports me in all these evening meetings that I have to go to. I think that means our marriage is still strong. She's getting me out of the house anyway. But when I make a decision on who to vote for, I don't look at the promises that are being made. I never have, never will. I look at what they've already done. And these are questions I ask when I'm looking, because I have to decide just like you on each of these other races. Have they been involved with the community as a volunteer, in their church, in their neighborhood? How do they run their household or their business? Do they work hard at their jobs? Do they get along with other people? Are they generous with their own time and money? If elected, will they embarrass me? Sometimes you get someone with the right ideas and philosophy, but they're kind of cuckoo in how they present it. You don't want them representing you. So what are the basis of their core values and beliefs? Do they have a foundation for those beliefs? Those are important to me when I choose someone to be a leader, whether it's in my business or in my community. And as you know, I'm not a liberal or progressive. I was until I was 21, and then I became a Christian. That's a little joke there, but when I took office 2 years ago, along with other like-minded people, the city of Nampa held the dubious honor of having the highest taxes in the state for cities over 50,000 people. Nampa no longer holds that dubious distinction or honor. And again, we helped reduce those taxes by, or levy rate by 16%. Now, we can't take all the credit for that, but we can take some. When I took office 2 years ago, the Ford Idaho Center was being subsidized by the taxpayer, you and me, $1.6 million a year so we can have the concerts and the rodeo. That's outrageous. We reduced that by 40%, and I'm confident we're going to keep that going in the right direction because of the leadership you have in Nampa now. We saved the taxpayers $250,000 in attorney fees in a 12-month period. That's significant. The city streets maintenance budget had not been increased again for 10 years, in good times and bad. Just to maintain our streets, we have, what, 325 miles of streets that we run? We have to maintain those. They fall apart, and then it gets real expensive once they fail. And last November, we had that big freeze and big snow. Remember trying to get around town? Well, I go to Michael Foose, our Public Works Director. Michael, why can't we keep these streets clear? And he explained we just don't have the resources. So I said, well, let's hire some private companies to come in. That has been done. Private enterprise is going to get those streets this snow year. Well, and I see my time is about up. So I humbly request your vote on November 3rd if you want to keep Nampa going in this direction, and that is lowering the taxes. May God continue to bless Nampa, Idaho. Thank you.
Dennis Davis.
Well, thank you, Scott. As we come to a close, I see a lot of familiar faces out there in the crowd, and there's also a lot of folks that have never met me. Over my time in public service, which was 34 years, I spent 28 of those years here with the city of Nampa, and got to know the city intimately, and came to appreciate what a great community it was. It was actually quite enlightening and also exhilarating to see what a community of 50,000 could do, because that was about what it was when I came to work here. You know, we built the new city hall, we built a civic center, 2 golf courses, a recreation center, and the Idaho Center, and went on to build a public safety building, and then later the library after I had left its employ. And I think that building on the past and what we've seen as successes, because it really was an exciting time at that time, and that type of experience that I gained over that time period is going to be valuable in my service to you again on the city council. I think that if we run away from our past and don't just take a good hard look at it and figure out what we did wrong and fix those things, but also use those things that were successes and huge successes at the time, we're making a huge mistake. So I would greatly appreciate your vote on November 3rd, and I'll do my best not to embarrass you.
Sandy Levi.
Will Rogers said, if you want to be successful, it's just this simple. Know what you are doing, love what you are doing, and believe in what you are doing. Let's break that down into some bite-sized nuggets. Success is defined as the accomplishment of an aim or purpose. My purpose? Building relationships, building community. Let's engage our residents in Nampa, instill pride and ownership, strengthen small and local businesses, and let's be an advocate for them between the citizens and City Hall. Secondly, know what you're doing. I know how to organize, to budget, and running a large family and teaching. In the past 14 years of investing myself in serving my community and the past 5.5 years of attending city council meetings have equipped me with the knowledge and experience. I have listened, I have learned, and I have heard the topics of concern, frustrations, and your creative solutions. Love what you're doing. I am a doer and a listener. I love to encourage. I want to be your cheerleader. I like to be a positive influence and to see others succeed. I like to work in a team or lead by example. I love my community. I believe in what I'm doing. I look for the good in others and the possibilities. I am optimistic, seasoned with a large dose of reality. I strongly believe in my platform: community, protection of our citizens, economic development, infrastructure, transportation, and exploring alternative transportation. They all go hand in hand and are vital to the health of our community. In closing, I've given you just a little bit of glimpse of who I am and my vision for Nampa. I represent the community. We share similar stories, values, experiences, joys, and sorrows. This is who I am and who I'm going to continue to be when I'm on City Council. I'm going to continue to serve right alongside of you, to listen, to learn, to keep my core values, not to be ashamed of my decisions, to own them, and to face myself in the mirror at night. On November 3rd, I encourage you to be responsible and vote. Color in the oval of the candidate not based on friendship, family, if they go to your church or serve in your service organization. Know the candidate that most closely resembles your topics, your issues, and your solutions. I want to thank you for the opportunity to visit with you tonight and allowing us to experience community together. I would appreciate your vote for Sandy Levi for City Council, Seat 4, on November 3rd. Thank you.
David Bills.
Thank you, Scott. And again, thank you to the Chamber and the Press Tribune for hosting the forum this evening. I'd like to remain on council. Why? Because I'd like to continue to encourage economic growth, economic growth by business and investors. I've been in business and I've been an investor. I've been a check writer. When it came to come alongside issues, we put in part of the pathway that is known as the Stoddard Branch alongside the Islands community. We've made substantial improvements into the city of Nampa. We've done so through various organizations. We've helped the school district. We've donated 2 acres to Park Ridge Elementary and provided additional ball fields for that school. We've done things because we've been a part of the community. We want to continue to encourage that growth by business and investors. We don't talk about it, we do it. Keep taxpayers in mind when making financial decisions. It's very important to me to spend the money correctly, prioritize it correctly, to treat it correctly, and we've lived and breathed that. And therefore, we walk the talk, and I believe we're there. Leadership that continues customer service. As you heard, have a strong desire that we and the citizens in Nampa, in the public service, is customer service base. I experienced during 2010 to 2014 a shifting of ordinances, a shifting of a heavy-handedness from staff. I've been there. I've had staff tell me, oh no, we've changed this on you. You now have to implement this. Well, when did that happen? Oh, well, that happened at City Council. I asked for the minutes. They couldn't produce the minutes. They just implemented the policy. It needs to be customer service. We need to encourage and speak the talk and walk the talk that the city conveys. Too many people come in and get information in the beginning. Then when their project gets approved and they're out the door, they're under construction or working for a certificate of occupancy, it changed. It changed from the day they came to the city, from the day they got their certificate. We need to be the same in the beginning, the same at the end. Finally, I want to continue to encourage long-term planning for the operations of the city, for the operations of parks and trails, and for the police department, the fire department. We need long-range planning. When I sat down with 2 members of the Association of the Police in January, one of the questions I asked, I said, if we were starting afresh, 80,000 community, how would we organize our police department? What would we do? Are we still doing what we should be? Chief Malott has commissioned a study to look at the fire department. Are we managing it in the way that we should be for the future? Or are we just always going to do what we've always done? I believe strongly, when common sense people do nothing, foolish ideas prevail. I believe I'm a common sense individual. I've been a part of the community. I've put things on the line. I've invested in this community, and I'm asking for your vote to continue the long-term direction for the city of Nampa.
Victor Rodriguez.
My vast experience as a police officer has given me the ability to listen to, understand, and lead people. I know how to build consensus and also feel comfortable taking on an unpopular stance when I know it is morally right. Being appointed to the Nampa Planning and Zoning Commission as a commissioner in 2013 has enabled me to make important decisions regarding economic development, growth, and comprehensive planning for the city of Nampa, and at the same time, listening to the community, and that's you. I always thought it was the city leaders who would bring people to our community, and then I realized that it's you that are instrumental in opening the doors for families, friends, and businesses to live and work in Nampa. You see, ladies and gentlemen, there's only 6 city councilmen and 1 mayor, but there's 90,000 of you. So where does it lay here? It's on you. We are here for you. I am here for you, and I work for you, and most of all, I answer to you. It will be a pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to be your city councilman, so please, God bless you, vote for me. Thank you.
Darrell Bruner.
Thank you. I failed to thank KBOI and Idaho Press Tribune and the Nampa Chamber for hosting this. And thank you for coming out and caring about Nampa and your future council. By the way, who's winning the Cubs game? Anybody know? No one cares? Okay, the Mets are winning. All right. Hey, I most of all want to thank my dear wife. She is kind of sick. She's in the back. She was coughing. She prays for me daily. I have 2 adult children that I am so proud of, and I really give her credit for what they have become. My daughter is a 5th grade teacher at Nampa Christian. She cares about those lives, and just like you care about your family's lives. And that's what needs to be continued. That's why I talk about faith, family, and freedom. I care about the nonprofits in this city. Lifeline Pregnancy. Where would we have life if we didn't have proponents for life for unwed mothers and others? That's great. My son is an Eagle Scout. I never learned in 5 years how to tie a knot, but he learned so many things as far as leadership, and he cares about young men and their futures, and I appreciate that. Leo Club, Lions, I joined that. John Van Manen recruited me back when I moved here in 1994. We have a Leo Club in Lions, just like Kiwanis has a Key Club. Those youth are so important to the community. They're our future. When some of us are long gone, that's what's going to happen. They are the future. Mrs. Moore, I see her in the background, her rad choir, years and years of working with these young people because she cares. She wouldn't have to be doing it, but she does it. That's what Nampa's about. I have been involved in a lot of different things. I've had experience. I credit Victor for his public service, but I have been in corrections, juvenile probation work for 3 years. I opened businesses, as I said, across Canada and the U.S. for 14 years. I've been at NNU now for 21 years doing fundraising and public relations. I have an associate out here that has put up with me for 21 years, April. We work together and we care about our NNU folks, our alumni and friends, but also anyone out there that cares about God and family. Most of all, I want to say one final thing here. I rate my integrity and honesty as so important. And thank the dear Lord I have that. But it's how I treat other people. And I believe that is the most important. My social work training, graduate work, my juvenile corrections, but most of all, the reading of the Bible daily has ingrained in me the importance of each and every individual life. God cares about all of us the same. And we need to all care about Nampa. It's a great city. Thanks.
All right. Well, thank you all again for coming. Our next forum for City Council, Caldwell City Council seats 4, 5, and 6 will be tomorrow night at 7 o'clock at Caldwell High School. In addition, the Idaho Press Tribune's Voters Guide will be in this Sunday's edition of the paper. Full answers to more questions from all the candidates and more information about the candidates will be online at idahopress.com. Tonight's complete forum will also be available for viewing at any time at kboi2.com. I want to thank the Caldwell Chamber of Commerce and the Nampa Chamber of Commerce, along with our media partner, KBOI TV, for helping present this forum. I want to thank all of you for attending. And most importantly, I want to thank the candidates and the council members who are serving. It's not easy. It's a thankless job a lot of times. We really appreciate your public service, and we appreciate you running and attending tonight and informing the voters. So now it's up to you. Everybody vote on November 3rd. Thank you, and good night.